This episode of the Poundcast is in part brought to you by Louisville Vegan Jerky Company. They make Louisville Vegan Jerky. That's right. It's meatless, soy-based jerky, and you can find them at lvjco.com. And they have lots of different flavors you can choose from, such as buffalo hot wing, pepperoni pizza, smoky Carolina barbecue, and they have limited edition small batch flavors such as Nashville hot chicken, cheddar jalapeno popper, and honey glazed ham. And get this, 10% of sales of this flavor go to the Dare to Care Food Bank, which has been helping out families in Kentucky for the past 55 years. So if you order on the website and use the code word Poundcast, you get 20% off your order. Now, this stuff is bagged in the United States. It has a shelf life of 9 months, and you don't have to order it online. If you want to order it in person at stores, you can find it at places like Whole Foods and Sprouts. And just check out their website, lvjco.com. Once again, use the code word Poundcast and get 20% off your order. Welcome to the Poundcast. My name is Brent Weinbach, and I'm here with former comedy club owner Tom Sawyer. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I guess let's just get this out of the way. People are probably wondering. His name is Tom Sawyer. Did your parents name you after the Rush song, the song by Rush?
Nope. No, not the book by Mark Twain or the song by Rush. They actually.
Oh, you didn't have a cousin named Huckleberry or anything like that?
Nothing like that. Becky, no Beckys.
How many jokes have you heard in that realm?
Enough where it's actually surprising that I haven't hurt somebody. Where I haven't lost it. But as a person of lesser character,
nobody did a Rush joke yet, though, had they?
Oh, only a couple thousand. Actually, I really appreciate that Rush did the song Tom Sawyer because it broke things up. Because before then it was Where's Injun Joe, Where's Becky, Where's Huck Finn, all that stuff, all the Mark Twain related stuff. And then when Rush did it, then I got everybody singing the song at me, including the president of Live Nation when I worked for them, who would do it every time he was smashed. I would hear Tom Sawyer in Drunken Ease, so that was always a thrill.
Okay, well then, what happened? What were your parents kind of thinking or not thinking?
They were Catholic, so my full name is Thomas Michael, so I have two apostles, so that's what they were thinking. They were going with apostles. In fact, they didn't understand that they named their kid Tom Sawyer till someone, like about 2 weeks after I was born, and they named me, they just said, you realize you named your kid Tom Sawyer. And then they went, oh,
I'm surprised they didn't. They were obviously familiar with.
I guess I thought I would stick with Thomas.
Oh, that's interesting. But even Thomas Sawyer sounds pretty Twainy.
Yeah. I know. I mean, I tried it for a little while.
Oh, did you?
Oh, yeah.
And then
that didn't last very long because people were going, they were either going, yeah, Tom Sawyer, or they were going, it sounds like something.
Oh, yeah.
Then you go through that, and you can't, especially when they're like that, they're people that you really don't want to talk to because they're thinking this long about, how do I know that name? So, but they're the kind of people, no, don't leave because I'm going to know what that name means in just a second. Give me another second. And then, so I went right back to Tom.
Did you ever embrace it? Did you ever start wearing overalls and a straw hat or something like that? Or
No. I would go through different phases of joking with people in different ways about it. I went through a whole phase of every time somebody did that, I would go, when they go, well, hey, Tom Sawyer, where's Becky? And I'd go, I don't know anybody named Becky. And then they go, Huck Finn. And I go, oh, sorry, doesn't ring a bell. But maybe it's another Tom Sawyer you're thinking of. I don't know those people.
That's really funny.
Like the book. What book? What are you talking about? Come
That's great.
on, you got to be kidding me. You don't know. So
Well, I like that approach. Just completely play total dumb on it, and just as if you just never. Yeah, that's good.
yeah,
So did you now you were you did you I mean, did you ever do solo? I know you did sketch, right? You did improv and stuff,
yeah.
right?
I did stand up too.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. So you were just doing solo stand up. So you
Yeah,
probably
actually,
talked about the name in your stand up,
I
right?
came up to I talked a little bit about it, but not much. But I came out to San Francisco in 1982 to become a stand up.
From where?
From Florida. I'm originally from Rhode Island, born and raised there, and then moved to Florida. Hung out, really didn't go to college, but I hung out at a college for 4 years,
Uh-huh.
to the point where everybody thought I was a student. But
College hangout.
yeah, yeah, I got all the benefits of college with none of the uh, payments. So yeah, so I didn't have any uh, SATs or
Did you sit in on classes?
no, but I actually started. It was New College in Florida. That's the college that Ron DeSantos has been screwing with for out there. But it was kind of a hippie school. So I was doing a play, and I met one of the students from the school, and invited me to a party. And then I, fell in love with this girl, and spent the summer, dating her, and then eventually. I eventually got really tied in with the school.
And
But
were you kind of secretly stealing her notebooks and reading her notes so you could sort of get something out of the classes she was taking?
no, actually, I didn't. I don't think I went to any classes, but I started. An improv group there,
Uh-huh.
and I also directed 4 plays. There was no theater department, so it was just me. So, and I was also on the school's radio as a station. I was a disc jockey on the station. So, I took all the fun parts out of college without any of the academics.
And then you moved to San Francisco. Why did you move to San Francisco? Because that was
But
kind of a booming scene.
yeah, it was a booming comedy scene.
And you wanted to do solo stand up.
Yeah, I always wanted to be an actor, or yeah, I did a lot of theater in Florida, and I always wanted to be an actor or a comedian. And so I went to San Francisco to be a comedian. A friend of mine said, "I'm going to San Francisco. Do you want to come? I know you were talking about it." And I said, "Yes, absolutely." So, because I hated Florida. Florida's awful. All the
And
bad press Florida gets is they're worthy of it. So.
when you went to San Francisco to do stand up, at what point did you think I actually want to just own and run a comedy club?
Well, actually, I was doing stand up like everybody else, and going to the Holy City Zoo. I don't think I ever performed at the Punchline. I went to went to the Holy City Zoo, and
And by the
then
way, just for reference to anybody who's not familiar with the Bay Area comedy clubs, the club that Tom had was Cobb's Comedy Club, which is one of
still there
it's one of the was the main it still is actually is one of the main clubs in San Francisco and
in the country, Brett.
in the country in the world actually.
Right.
And
Yeah.
anyway, so it's not just I mean this is not just any ordinary place. This is a highly esteemed place that every comedian wants to work at and be a part of and stuff. So
And when I
anyway.
started it, nobody wanted to be there because it was only about, on a good night, there was like 20 people
What
there.
was it
So,
called? Comedy a Go Go? Was that what it was
no,
called?
no, that was another place. But
Okay.
no, it was Cobb's Comedy Pub or Cobb's Pub.
Okay.
And it was being booked by a guy who got fired from the Holy City Zoo. And he was doing a horrible job booking the club. And
Oh, so Cobb's existed before you.
yeah, and not much before me. I mean, I was going down there because you could get stage time. The other clubs, you would go on either if you got lucky, you'd go on like in the first 3 or 4 comedians, but most of the time you'd be going on when the crowd was non-existent or dead and tired. But you could go to Cobb's and perform till someone literally tagged you out because hardly any comics were there. So I could go over there and get stage time. And so I'd rather have stage time in front of an awake audience and a small crowd than a small crowd that was tired and drunk. So I preferred. So I was hanging out at Cobb's a lot and got to know the owner.
And
And
where was this? Where was this located?
it was on Chestnut Street. The first Cobb's
Right.
pub, Cobb's Comedy Club, was on Chestnut Street.
Right.
And then I kept telling him I could do a better job booking it, even though I had never booked a comedy club before. I just was a big fan of comedy.
And you were friends with probably people you were doing sets, shows with.
I was friends with people that were at my level.
Uh-huh. Who was at your level at that time? This is around 82, 83 or something?
Yeah.
Who
I don't
was?
know if there's, the San Francisco, Warren Thomas. I know a lot of people might not know these names. Not too many comics came out of that. It was kind of like a weird little class that of people who didn't quite make it. We didn't really have a lot of people that really broke out of that. Shortly after, there was a lot of people that broke out of San Francisco. A lot of people were drawn to San Francisco because Robin Williams had gotten huge really quickly. And he was just done with Mork and Mindy and started going into films at that time. And
Fact,
so, yeah.
World According to Garp, 1982.
Yeah, right. So, what I love, and then that's actually one of my favorite films by him.
Oh, yeah.
And so I just kept telling the owner I could do a better job booking it, and finally he just got so frustrated with the shows and the attendance that he said, "Well, it's yours," So I started booking it and turned it around, and then eventually bought it. So,
how did you turn it around? What were your what made your booking different than whoever was doing it?
well, main thing was that I was paying the best. I offered. I was basically paying out 80% of the door to comics. I took 20%. 80% went to the comics, and that included the 80%, and the 80% included any airfare or hotel. But there was
you were bringing people from out of the city. I mean, out of the
not
state.
right away, but I had a lot of people like that weren't playing Cobb's, like Bobby Slayton and Paula Poundstone, Kevin Pollak. There was a really vibrant scene of headliners, even at that time, that were local. So there was a lot of people who didn't quite make it into the bigger and better things, but there was quite a few local headliners. So I would say probably about 65-70% of my acts right away were local, and then I started. Then I reached out to a couple people about, hey, do you know like Rick Overton, or do you know Bob Saget? Do you know Kevin Nealon? People I'd seen on HBO and young comedian specials and stuff like that. And they said, yeah, here's his number, and I'll put in a good word for you. And because they were playing the club, and the club was starting to build up an audience because a lot of the people that we had on the show were doing local radio. And because we were paying people a percentage of the door, their best opportunity to really cash in on that was to promote the shows. So there was a guy on the radio, Alex Bennett, who was huge at the time. I mean, huge, and locally.
Mm-hmm.
And so if a comic could only do Alex Bennett like once a month, or even a couple times, they would really save their that spot for Cobb's because they could really cash in on it. So comics were making. And remember that the first Cobb's was like 110 seats. That was our legal capacity, was 110 seats. So comics were making more at Cobb's when it was sold out than they would be making at the Punchline when it was sold out by a good sized number. And the Punchline was double the size of Cobb's.
Yeah.
So Punchline was having like 220, Cobb's is 110. We're paying people, everybody, not just the headliners, but everybody, because we weren't just giving a percentage to the headliner. We were given a percentage to the feature act, to the MC. So, of
Were
course,
you booking yourself on these shows too?
not really, because I felt that was kind of like, you know, first of all, I wasn't good.
Well, wait, actually, real quick, but what was your stand up like, actually?
My stand up was like, it wasn't good. It was,
Who were you influenced by?
I was trying to fit in. So I was trying to be esoteric when probably my natural sense of humor is being sarcastic and being a smartass.
Okay.
Um, and you
So
know, doing,
who were you trying to be like?
I was trying to be like
Eagle
everybody
Phillips
who
or
was
something?
doing. No, so well, remember the big comics at the scene on the scene at the time were like Dana Carvey, who was a little esoteric, and Robin Williams, who was very esoteric, and
Yeah.
Jeremy Kramer, who was very esoteric. Yet all these guys are trying to be weird and out there a bit, and so I just wanted to fit in. So
So you
instead
were
of
trying to
like,
be weird?
yeah,
Well, what's one example of you trying to be weird and it not
oh,
really playing out?
doing like bad like kind of song parodies. I mean, really embarrassing. I mean, the good thing about it is I did have a couple good jokes. In fact, one of them wound up on the Tonight Show. Bobby Slayton ended up doing it.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, so by osmosis, I got to perform one of my jokes for Johnny Carson. So it
Yeah.
was when Carson was hosting.
Okay.
And the joke was a West Side Story joke, which was yeah, I was watching West Side Story last night. Good movie, like the songs, but a little unrealistic. Like with the part where the white guy goes into Spanish Harlem and screams at the top of his lungs, Maria, and one girl comes to the window. A little unrealistic. So, but yeah,
There
that
should
was
have been at least two. There should have been at least two that came
yes,
to the window. At
yes,
least two.
at least two. But it was it was the '80s, so it's not really the greatest joke on the planet, but it was one of my best jokes that always got a laugh. And Bobby Slayton was like, "Hey Sawyer, you're not doing that joke anymore, are you?" So I was like, "No." He goes, "Can I have it? It's all yours."
Oh,
So
you didn't buy it off you?
no, I just gave it to him because I wanted
Yeah.
Bobby to perform at the club. So I mean, it's like
Okay.
it's
It's like I'll give you that joke, and let's say 60% of the door as opposed to 80 if you do the club. Where it balances out.
well, the headliners made about 40% of the
Oh,
door.
okay. Then the rest
Yeah,
went to the others.
yeah.
Yeah.
The rest went to the other acts. Feature acts made like 15 to 20%, and MCs made about 10% of the door.
Yeah.
So
So now, by the time the club has gotten pretty happening, what is it, 85 at this point or something?
no, it got pretty happening within about a year and a half. We
Oh,
went from.
wow.
I mean, I was the young phenom because I was like 24 years old at the time. Like,
Oh, really?
yeah, yeah. So I had my picture like about 2 years after I started booking Cobb's. I had my picture on the on the date book. A whole article about me.
Was there an act that you got in there that you maybe flew out that you was when you really thought, "Whoa, I can't believe I'm getting this guy"? Or
Richard Lewis, Jerry Seinfeld played Cobb's, and this is again it's a 110 seat uh, little
yeah,
bar and I'm getting all these amazing acts. Some Robert Wool played the club, who's big in movie. He was in Bull Durham, and
yeah.
so there was a number of acts. Rita Rudner.
You know what's crazy? Yeah, he was what? But wasn't he also in? I feel like no, he wasn't also in
He had a
that. I was
series
gonna say.
called Arliss.
Oh, well, oh yeah, he was an Arliss. He was. But
Yeah.
I was gonna say I thought that he was also in.
He was in Batman, the original
Yeah,
Batman.
yeah, yeah. I thought he was also in another baseball movie, but anyway, yeah. So you got these guys, okay, and then were you kind of just thinking, I can't believe, and as a kid, basically, you're thinking, I can't believe I have these, national headliners that are coming here now.
Yeah, and more because now the comedy scene's having another explosion because of like us, and it's I'm changing the scene because even the Punchline was relying more on local acts. Now because we've brought the bar up a bit. They're trying to get out of town acts as well. L.A.
Were you
acts.
competitive with the Punchline?
Yeah,
So
the
was
Punchline
there
and the other cafe. Not
okay? So was there any kind of rivalry there or something?
not well. There was a little bit of a rivalry with with the Punchline, not so much the other clubs, but the Punchline's owner was, kind of a dick to me. So,
Hmm.
I remember the first time he called me. I think it was like I was having some uh, uh, show that was like it was like Showtime or some cable network wanted to do a comedy competition thing, and John Fox called me, and I'm like, it's the first time I ever talked to him, and he's like, "Hi, this is John Fox," and I go, "Hi, this is Tom Sawyer," and I'm like, "Oh, John Fox is calling. This is really cool. He's like the big guy. He's like the big producer," and he just starts right in on me, like, I'm going to tell my attorneys and blah blah blah, and yeah.
Attorneys.
Well, because I said, dude, it's not. I'm not. I'm. They just
Did
want to
they
do
did
this
they
show
feel
here.
like you were stealing their
Yeah.
comedians or something?
No, because remember he does the San Francisco comedy competition.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he thought I was stealing his idea of the San Francisco comedy competition.
Oh wait, did you have a competition?
No, but at this thing was like a competition for Showtime or
Oh,
Cinemax.
I see, I see, I see, I see.
I
Yeah,
can't
yeah, yeah.
remember what the cable network was.
Yeah.
So I said, well, I just haven't changed the name. We don't have to call it that. I go, well, you better. I go, I will. I will. God damn it! You can't stop me. I will change the name to something else. But he was really a dick. Not like,
Uh-huh.
hey, would you mind? Would be okay. It's kind of our thing. And yeah, I would have been like, but I was like, okay, whatever. I don't care. And I think we just did that kind of thing one time there. But we had a lot of people from the Tonight Show the talent coordinators from the Tonight Show, from Letterman. And that was the other thing too. Once the word got out that, Cobbs is paying a percentage of the door, we were getting not just local plugs from the radio, local, and the main guy, Alex Bennett, and all the other ones that were started having comedians on because comedy was so big. But we were getting national plugs from the Tonight Show, Letterman, all the major talk shows because comics wanted to. Anytime a comic knew that they were going to be on the Tonight Show, if they called me, they would call me up. Hey, I'm doing the Tonight Show in 6 weeks. Is there any way you have a week open then? And I go, no, but let me see if I can move somebody around. So, I'd move somebody around, maybe give them a little extra percentage of the door the next time they play it and give them a date right away. And then I would be getting all these national plugs as well. So, and then, because the club went from having like 20 people in the building to like being sold out like half the week, we started getting attention from the local press. So we started getting articles written about the club, reviews of the comics coming from reviewers coming down to write reviews of the comics that are playing the club because we're getting more and more national headliners in. And so we had reviews on Seinfeld and reviews on on Richard Lewis, reviews on Sam Kinison, all these people that were coming down and writing the press, San Francisco Examiner, San Francisco Chronicle, SF Weekly. So we had all this press, we had all this national exposure from TV and local exposure from radio. So we were, by the time we moved the club when I bought it to the Cannery, we went from being this little place, dive to another 200 seat club that was selling out like that was about at 85% capacity for
So
the.
what? How did that happen? You like around what year did that happen when you bought it? And how did you even? What made you think? Well, we're doing so well right now. I can buy this
Well,
myself.
I don't disparage the owner, but the previous owner that I worked for. I mean, but he ran things a certain way where eventually the IRS came in and closed it because of a lack of tax payment.
Uh huh.
So we ended up buying the name and the liquor license out of bankruptcy.
Huh.
And then we moved the location to the cannery
So
in Fisher's
when you
Wharf.
bought it, you also moved it at the same time.
Yeah, well, we were looking for a location at the time, and we also were, asking if comics wanted to invest, and we had a number of comics who invested in the club, and a number of just local people who invested in the club. Uh, we were, so it cost about like $150,000 to build out the space that we had at the time. This was like 80, about 87, like 88, like
Okay.
yeah, 80, yeah, about 88 that we reopened, or 87, 88,
Yeah.
and then we reopened there. Now we were 200 seats.
Now, did the shows just get more and more, I guess, just exciting when it moved to the new
Yeah.
location?
Well, I had more space. That means, that people could make even more
Right, but I
money.
guess with the more intimate space, there was probably some really special shows that happened that maybe couldn't be as special because they weren't as intimate, I guess.
I think the weird thing about it was the bigger space was actually more intimate than
Oh,
the old space, because the first Cobb's was 110 seats, but it was like a bowling alley.
oh,
I mean, it was literally like at its widest, it was like 3 tables wide.
yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
and then just went, to the back to
Okay.
front. So so the new Cobb's was more triangular,
Yeah.
and or yeah. So it was it the so it the stage was like you were surrounded by the audience, and on each side but the back of you.
Yeah.
And comics had to the old Cobb's comics could walk off from the side of the stage, would not be seen, and should come on stage. In the new Cobb's, you'd have to walk through the crowd. There was an aisle, and you'd walk through the crowd to get on stage. And there really wasn't a green room. We didn't have a green room. So
Yeah. Did now what was the I don't know, what was like a show or a moment that you thought was just really special that
so many.
wasn't caught on on videotape or anything or
Oh,
whatever, you
well,
know?
Sam Kinison shows at Cobb's.
At
Uh,
the Cannery Cobbs?
no, that was at
At the pub.
at the pub. Yeah, at the Cannery, we had Jim Carrey a number of times. Uh,
What was up with the Sam Kinison shows? Were those just really wild and was he
well, this is
wild?
before Sam was like nationally known. In fact, um, he had just auditioned like after the first week, because he was the first comic to ever play a 2 week run at Cobb's.
Oh,
Um, and he was not on anything. I just thought, when I saw him in LA, I thought he was one of the most amazing comedians I'd ever seen.
oh, so you would go make trips to Los Angeles to find, you
Yeah,
know, other acts and stuff. Where did you see him?
at the Comedy Store.
Uh-huh. And what was he doing at the Comedy Store when you
Well,
saw
I
him?
saw him twice. The first time I saw him, he killed. The second time I saw him, he bombed. But I didn't have any problem. In fact, he got really paranoid after the second time I saw him. He goes, "You're not going to cancel the date, are you?" I go, "No." And go, "You're not scared after seeing that?" I mean, I tanked. I go, "Your act is going to tank unless you're the headliner and people are there to see you, because what you're doing is either going to make people want to leave or laugh their ass off."
Was he
So,
just so when you saw him, was he just screaming his head off and stuff? I
no,
mean,
he was just much smarter, because he wasn't doing as many drugs, wasn't drinking as much, because he was a massive consumer of anything that could get you high. And
yeah.
so, and it was really interesting because Sam was like, he was, I wouldn't say he was the nicest person in the first week, but he was like one of those people almost that was too nice. They're hiding something too nice. Like he's one of those guys that you find yourself backing up when they're talking to you because they keep moving a little too close. Like at some point you want to make an X on the floor and go, "You stay here."
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, tell me about it. I don't know if that means someone's too nice. That just means someone just is a little unaware of their space, I guess. But
Yeah. Oh, but it turns out he was like in the too nice category, because the week we had done so much promotion on this guy coming, and nobody knew nobody knew who he was. I mean, we just had like flyers that saying the Beast is coming, and it was a picture of Sam with a comb over and dark glasses. You couldn't even see his eyes.
the beast is
And
coming.
the Beast
Okay,
is coming. Not for those easily offended. Kind
that's
of
funny.
thing. And then I told the newspapers, "You got to see this guy. He's amazing." And we had all the critics out on opening night. the comics already knew about him, so everybody was telling their friends. And again, we had been promoting this guy for about 6 weeks. You're not going to believe this guy. He's the most, he's again not for those easily offended. If you're somebody who doesn't like, rough stuff, don't come. And everybody was curious now, so we were sold out in the first couple. We were doing really good ticket sales, and then like Friday, the reviews came out, and it was like the San Francisco Examiner, San Francisco Chronicle, and they were both saying this is the second coming of Lenny Bruce. This guy is the most amazing comedian ever. And then we sold out the following week.
Okay, so his shows, even the ones with the press there, those did really well.
Yeah,
all his shows did well.
Yeah,
that's exciting. Yeah,
because we were really good at promoting
Well, what's also exciting about that is I guess that's just the word of mouth that really is what it is. I mean, it's just people saying, you got to check this guy out. You weren't sending videos to anybody saying, well, this is what it's like. People just had to come and then see for themselves.
Oh,
That's such an exciting, pure kind of
thing.
Yeah,
he had not been on television. In fact, he went back to Los Angeles because he had an off day on Monday before we started the second week, or Monday and Tuesday, I think. And then he did his Letterman audition, which he got, on the Monday prior to coming back to Cobb's.
Oh, yeah.
So he hadn't even done Letterman yet.
Was there a particular moment, or was he really wild behind the scenes that week, or he was still pretty reserved when it came to drugs and stuff?
Yeah, he was. No.
Okay, he wasn't. Okay.
No, there was a lot of drugs, and he was bragging about having sex with a guy's wife, and he made her watch. He made the guy watch.
Really?
Yeah. And I remember this because we had a regular poker night on Sundays, and we were playing poker at my apartment, and Sam came by because he was playing. Actually, this is when he was playing Foo Bars as another club I was booking in the East Bay called Foo Bars, and he came by and started bragging about having sex with this guy's wife, and and who's a friend of his, and while he was making him watch, and I was like, we're all like, that's nice, Sam. Really? Yeah, I'll raise you. That's good. Really good. Thanks. We're also having a pizza here and trying to eat. So if you could just kind of tone it down because nobody wants to think of you having sex. Sam was not the handsomest fellow on the planet. He was the weirdest shaped guy because he was like 5'4" or 5'5", and his hands were enormous. As much as everybody says Trump's hands are small, Sam's hands were like the hands of a guy that would be like a foot taller.
Okay.
Like 6'5".
So he's kind of a small guy, but with huge hands.
And they went down a little further than they're supposed to be. So kind of like, the weird picture of a guy that's arms are longer, or because his hands are bigger.
He's like a gorilla kind of, or something.
Exactly. Uh-huh. And so, he had the voice and the booming, but he was also when people ask me who was the funniest guy or person ever to play Cobb's, Sam is like on the top of the list because those 2 weeks that he performed were amazing. I mean,
Sam Kinnison's your favorite.
I think I don't know if I would say favorite, but I would say it was an amazing 2 weeks because, Jim Carrey played the club, and, Jerry Seinfeld played so many great people played the club. I mean, hilarious. Brian Regan would do 2-week runs, twice a year. And that was, everybody, went crazy for Brian. He was at his peak, and nobody made people laugh harder than Brian Regan. Plus then you had Patton Oswalt that was starting up, Mark Maron, Paula Poundstone, Ellen DeGeneres, and all these people. I mean, it was crazy. I look back at some of our calendars, and it's crazy. I mean, Bill Maher was a regular at Cobb's. Joe Rogan was a regular at Cobb's. A lot of people, no, I'm not so happy about, but yeah.
Well, now, okay, so after seeing, and then so anyway, for everyone else, that eventually the Cobb's moved to an even bigger venue that sat twice as many as the
Yeah.
ones at the cannery. It was
Yeah, we double in size. We're like a virus. We double in size every time we
yeah.
move.
Every time they're doubling, and they moved to North Beach, and yeah, it was a
Or it still
400.
is right now.
It's still there
400.
now.
Yeah.
And eventually you did sell it. Sometime in the 2010s, I guess.
Yeah, I sold it in 2005 and to Live Nation.
Oh, you
Worked for
sold it in
Live,
2005. Okay, wow, I didn't
yeah,
realize
and
it
then I
was.
worked for Live Nation for 7 years with booking comps.
Okay, okay. So then you were out in 2012. I thought for
Yeah.
some reason you went even longer with it, but so after like booking, I guess the 80s, 90s, 2000, yeah, pretty much. Okay, the 80s, 90s. It's basically 3 decades of comedy.
Yeah.
Uh, do you think there was a period that was stronger than other periods? I mean,
Um, every well, I mean, for the San Francisco comedy scene itself, the uh, the 80s and 90s were amazing. Because I mean, we had one wave after another of amazing talent. I
so
mean,
basically, the guys from the 2000s were not that great
well,
comparatively. We're talking my class here.
not so. It's not so much that you guys weren't as good or great. It just wasn't the atmosphere wasn't as strong as it was, back
You
then.
mean there weren't as many comedy goers, I guess.
A lot of clubs closed in the '90s after the comedy boom hit. A lot of I mean, you got to remember, there were so many clubs in the Bay Area that you could live in the Bay Area and make a good living.
Really, yeah, and you didn't really have
Even
to
as a
travel that
feature
much.
act, even as a feature act, you could make a really good living performing because you could do like, especially if you're a feature act, you're playing, you could play, every club 2 or 3 times a year, and you're doing good. Then you go out on the road, maybe, 2 or 3 months, maybe if that,
Yeah.
because you could do so much local. Plus, the one nighters here or there and filling in the calendar.
So
So.
do you feel like because there was the more of the boomingness of the 80s and maybe some of the 90s, because of that, it made the scene more, I guess, just more exciting, and it was maybe a better those were more fun generations or something like
Well,
that.
no, I just think I think when everybody could go out and make a living and stay close to home and have a home life and not go on the road as much and, be able to work out the material and, spend a little more time doing that and make money and pay the rent. Um, and there were things to do locally as for local television, and stuff like that. You didn't have to go to New York or LA, or especially LA. I think what happened with a lot of comics in the 2000s was it was kind of there was a necessity for a lot of people to get to a certain level and then get out,
Hmm.
and then move to LA, where
Right.
people like Marin and Patton and Greg Barrett and others were sticking around, to headline. I mean, they were headlining, and living locally. I mean, they went from MC to middle act to headliner while they were living in San Francisco, where they're at that point where there's so few clubs. You guys in the 2000s couldn't make the same kind of money that these guys were making, so you had to either try to move into writing or television somehow, or movies, and so there was more of a mass exodus to go to Los Angeles. For some people, even New York, to get writing jobs or other jobs that were in the entertainment industry, because there just wasn't enough road gigs, because comics, not just around the country, not just in San Francisco, but clubs were closing everywhere in the country.
Hmm.
I mean, there were thousands of clubs in the 80s and early 90s.
Yeah.
And then it just because there were just too many clubs and not enough talent, the shows got weaker for everybody out there, going out, and the shows on television got weaker. So comedy got exposed as a thing where, hey, there's not enough even B talent to do, shows like Evening at the Improv. And there were about 5 of those, where they'd have like 7 comics on, and then clubs around the country had trouble, booking A-list talent, and So you lost a lot of clubs in that time frame. So
How did Cobb survive all that? Like I mean,
well, we did what we always do, which is we booked even bigger acts. I just everybody was cutting back. We were like going, okay, the only way to really beat this is to have acts that people um, uh, really know. And at that time, we were paying more guarantees than percentages of the door.
Mhm.
So we just made less.
Yeah,
My ex-wife and I, who was my business partner, we just made less money. We didn't make as much money as we used to. I mean, we never really drove around in Porsches. I think the best new car I ever bought was a Nissan Maxima, and we eventually bought a house in the East Bay, and but we were never like rich. I wasn't never a person who was driven to getting rich off of this. I was really happy with being kind of always a middle class kid. So being middle class but hanging around really cool people was so much.
but you must have thought you were kind of hot stuff at one point.
Oh, of course I did. I'm fucking, I'm 20, 24, 25 years old, and I got
Yeah.
my picture in the San Francisco Chronicle, and
Right.
I'm on the Alex Bennett show talking about my success, and
Yeah.
I thought I was hot shit. In fact, I was being an asshole myself, and I had like my friends, some of my best friends, like did an intervention with me about
Oh, really?
the dickhead.
I want to, I'm gonna wrap up the main episode here, and then we'll go into the unzipped portion. But before we do, I just wanted to mention that there was, when I started in the early 2000s, and you gave me some advice that I kind of was a little resistant to at first, but it was actually really, really good advice. I don't know if I told you that this was how much I appreciate now the advice, but I was starting to work the club, Cobb's, and I was substitute teaching at first. When I started comedy, I was substitute teaching during the day. I was also playing piano at night. I was doing kind of a lot of things, but I would do material about substitute teaching, and I would say on stage that I substitute teach, and that I currently do that. And you told me one night that I should not say that I do that. That you should say I used to do that. Or that I should just talk about it in the past tense, because it'll make me look more professional, to a paying audience. They didn't come to watch someone who's just doing stand-up comedy on the side or whatever. That this is you want to make it look like this crowd came to pay to see professional comedians, and this is what they do for a living.
Right.
And I kind of at the time just thought, I just felt like I kind of I heighten my I heighten a lot of things on stage, and so I felt like, well, I think it's just maybe part of a kind of persona to say I'm a substitute teacher currently. But I did it. I started talking about being a substitute teacher in the past tense, and eventually that became a reality. And I kind of feel like saying it in the past tense, it kind of in a way manifested actually becoming a full-time stand-up comedian and not doing another job.
You made it happen.
Yeah, and it's totally true also that it definitely adds professionalism to the show to not say that you're doing some other job at the same time, but just to say you used to do that, and put off the give them the illusion that you do this is all you do. It is better for the crowd, and it's better for a paying crowd to think, yeah, we're paying to see professional comedians, not somebody who's a substitute teacher who also does stand-up comedy. So that was all good advice, so much so that I give that advice now to other people. I'll say, I see it so much too. People saying I do this job or I work, they talk about these retail jobs that they work or whatever, and I say, don't say that. Just say you used to do it, and and then eventually, and I told it to one person, a friend, and she worked a retail job or something, and she started saying it in the past tense, like I kind of suggested she should. And 2 weeks later, she got a job that was where she didn't. It was, I mean, she got a writing job, but it was not the retail job, and it was kind of like, oh wow, it worked. It worked for her too.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was really good advice, And
And I tried really hard to give people, because the other thing is I never, took advantage of, what little stand up I did. I didn't book myself all the time. I only plugged myself in when there was really no money for an MC. And I would, and no time really, because when I had a headliner that wanted to do an hour and 15, then the feature act, yes, there was no time for an MC. So I would just go up there, do a couple things, and and then bring up the acts. But
yeah.
but mostly I stopped. And for the other comics, to me it was always about, hey, when I was doing stand up, I sucked. So here's what not to do.
Hmm.
I was really good at what not to do because I did it. It really didn't work for me. So I always tell people, be genuine to who you are. Be yourself. Do things that make you laugh. I mean, anytime somebody would get on the Cobb Showcase for the first time, and how hard that was to get on your first time.
I'll talk about that in the Unzipped. Yeah.
Yeah. So what I always tell people when they got on for the first time, just you got 5 minutes. I want to see the stuff that you like. Don't do the stuff you think the audience likes. I want to see the stuff that you like. So that's what I'm interested in. Just show me your favorite stuff. So
That's a lot of what I tell. If people ask me advice too, I say the same thing. Is just that it's all about just really knowing who you are and projecting that, and exaggerating it too, but just honing in on yourself or a side of yourself at least that you can kind of make it into a caricature or something like that. But it's all about sort of really being true to what
being your
is your
genuine
comedy.
self.
And, yeah, true to yourself. Yeah, I mean, and once you know that, and once that's your voice, and once you know that, it doesn't even really matter the material after that. It all kind of falls into place after that. You could talk about anything, but if you're talking about it from your specific point of view, that's what makes the act.
Yeah, and if something happens on stage, or during your set, or somebody yells out, or waitress drops something, or something happens, you're reacting in your genuine self, because that's who you've been for the last 20 minutes on stage. So something happens, you're still there. This is you. It's not something happens and then who's this guy? Just showed up.
Yeah.
So it makes everything easier.
Well, look, we're going to continue on with Tom Sawyer. If you want to continue on with us, we do this thing called Unzipped, and they are extended versions of the episodes, and you can find them at patreon.com/Poundcast. And not only do you get the extended episodes, you get them a couple days earlier, and there's some other little tidbits on there as well. And so patreon.com/Poundcast. If you want to watch the show on video, you can go to youtube.com/ThePoundcast. There's also an Instagram account that has highlight clips on there. It's The Poundcast. And Tom, is there anything you want to plug or anything? I mean, I know you do voiceover work now, and you do other things. And what do you want to plug?
Well, you can go to my site, which is www.tomsawyervoices.com, and from there you can check out my work. Check out there's a page of all kinds of amazing photos from Cobb's Comedy Club. You'll see all the comics that played there. Not all of them, but about 70% of them. And there's all kinds of amazing photos, including Brent. And also there's a direct link to the documentary about me and Cobb's called The Comedy Club, which is on Amazon Prime. And there's a direct link to the Tubi. It's also being shown on Tubi. So you can. There's all kinds of things to do on my website.
Do you think we might have got even just a little tiny chunk of something that wasn't covered in the documentary today?
Yeah. I'm always talking about something.
Maybe the stuff about being named after Rush or something. I don't know. But all right, so hey, thank you. So thank you to Tom Sawyer. Thank you to Jack Birch for his help behind the scenes. And we'll see you in the Unzipped in just a little bit, or otherwise we'll see you next week. My name is Brent Weinbach. The show is The Poundcast. Bye-bye.